This is Father Vogel. We continue our series of St. Francis de Sales' Introduction to the Devout Life. We're in part 3, looking at the different virtues, and we've been going through the evangelical counsels of poverty, chastity, and obedience. We're now looking at poverty. In the last video, we looked at how to practice poverty of spirit, even if we may be rich. And so now we're going to go into the specifics on being able to practice that kind of spiritual poverty in the midst of practicing not just spiritual poverty, but also practicing real poverty in the midst of remaining rich. So St. Francis de Sales says to make your wealth useful and profitable. The possessions which we have are not our own. God has given them to us. So that's one of the things to be reminded of, is that the riches that we have, the wealth, money, those are all completely gifts from God. And so He gives it to us to be able to do good for others. He says, often practice well real and effectual poverty in the midst of all the possessions and riches God has given you. So there's ways to do this. He says, giving to the poor with a generous heart. How holy and rich is the impoverishment brought about by almsgiving. So maybe there's a part of us who wants to hold on to that because we're like, I don't know if I can give as much. But to really to give not just from our surplus, but from simply what we have. He also says to practice real poverty is to love the poor, to be with them, to experience and be around the poverty that they themselves are living. Be happy to see them at your home and visit them at their homes. So become friends with them, talk to them willingly, and be quite at ease when they come near you. Because they're children of God. The only difference might be is that you have been given different wealth. But ultimately that really isn't fundamental to who a person is. He says, also, there is no one who has not experienced at times some want or lack of convenience. So when we're missing something, that's a kind of poverty of whatever it might be. This is very easy for us to experience those kinds of poverty within our culture, where we don't, even those that are poor within are often not quite as poor as other places around the world. He says, it is easy often to be in need of something, however rich we may be. This is being effectually poor with regard to what we lack. So recognizing that we're lacking something and accepting it, rather than becoming upset that, well, why don't I have that thing, or I need to get that. But being able to practice that kind of momentary poverty. He says you experience some misfortunes which will impoverish you either very much or little, such as tempests, fire, floods, droughts, theft, lawsuit. It is then the best time to practice poverty, accepting with gentleness this decrease of wealth. So when we find ourselves facing some kind of situation that causes us some kind of inconvenience, it could be as simple as, you're at a hotel room traveling and it's lacking certain amenities that you would really like, or maybe you would expect to be there, to not get so bent out of shape or upset, but to cheerfully accept certain occurrences. He says, if our goods are attached only to the care that God desires us to have for them, and not to our hearts, then when they are taken away, we do not lose our reason or tranquility. So we know if we're really practicing real poverty is that, when they are taken away from us, how does that affect our hearts? Were we spiritually attached to them, or are we attached more to God? And practicing in those moments when we must, not only spiritual poverty, but also real poverty in the midst of mostly comfort, that can assist us in growing closer to the Lord. God bless.